shocking family secrets, a hidden legacy, and a caregiver's unthinkable inheritance. Will Sofia Rivera forgive the man who changed her life, or will the truth tear everything apart? Hit that subscribe button and join us to uncover the dramatic twist of love, loss, and redemption. The sun blazed harshly outside, but inside the cramped hospital lounge, the whispers among relatives were far hotter. Sofia Rivera sat with her head bowed, quiet amidst the sharp glares thrown at her by the family of Mr. Edward Grayson. "I knew it," hissed one of his daughters, raising a suspicious brow. "She was just using Dad, taking advantage of his kindness. She probably didn't even take proper care of him, so he'd die faster." Another voice cut in, this one laced with venom and rage. Sofia couldn't look up. She had no words. Even if she wanted to speak, her tongue felt glued to the back of her throat, pressed down by the heavy weight of accusation. A moment later, the lawyer arrived, clutching a thick folder. The rustling sound of paper, as he opened it, sliced through the tense silence in the room. He read silently for a few seconds, then cleared his throat. "According to the last will and testament of Mr. Edward Grayson," the attorney began, "all of his properties, his home, land, businesses, and savings will be transferred to Miss Sofia Rivera." Silence fell like a hammer in the room. All eyes turned toward Sofia in synchronized disbelief. Her shoulders sank even further. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. "This is Mr. Hope again. Let's rewind to the beginning of the story. Doctors calling over the intercom, the blaring of ambulances outside, the hurried footsteps of medical staff, but Sofia couldn't hear any of it. She worked in this public hospital. At just 24, she was already a familiar face, known not only for her skill, but for her unwavering compassion toward patients. Whether assigned to the emergency room or the charity ward, Sofia Rivera had become something of a legend. Her hands moved swiftly, her steps were light, and, most strikingly, she wore a gentle smile even in the midst of chaos. Despite the lack of medical supplies, the overcrowded wards, and the often irritable moods of tired co-workers, Sofia remained resilient. "Ma'am, I'm going to insert the 4 now. Please try to relax," she said soothingly, calming a crying mother who gripped the hand of her child, stricken with dengue fever. Even when exhausted, Sofia smiled. She knew how to empathize. She knew how to listen. She didn't just treat physical ailments. She healed hearts, too. "Thank you, Nurse Sofia," croaked an elderly patient named Mrs. Carter, squeezing her hand. "If it weren't for you, I might not have made it." Sofia smiled back. "I should be the one thanking you, ma'am. Keep fighting." Across the hospital, patients and visitors alike watched Sofia with admiration. Working in a public hospital was no joke. There were always shortages of medicine, equipment, and sometimes even doctors. But Sofia never gave up, even when the environment seemed hopeless. "You know, Sofia," one of her fellow nurses whispered while refilling syringes, "if all nurses were like you, I think this job would feel a whole lot easier." Sofia just smiled and shrugged. She didn't work for praise. Her strength came from every patient who recovered, every family member who smiled through tears. That was where she drew her power. But no matter how dedicated she was, she knew her salary could never truly cover the real responsibilities waiting for her at home. When she arrived back at their small apartmenta, run-down, rust-scented building, she went straight to the tiny table in her cramped third-floor room. She opened a piggy bank and a small cash box. Slowly, she counted the money inside. After bills and her younger brother's medication, there was barely anything left. It felt like a slap in the face, considering how many overtime shifts she'd taken. She turned toward the worn-out mattress in the corner where Lucas, her 10-year-old brother, lay sleeping thin, pale, with an oxygen nebulizer next to him. In the kitchen, her 11-year-old sister, Mia, stirred the pot on the stove, preparing dinner. A meager stew with more sauce than meat, flavored with scraps of potato and a few slivers of beef. "Sorry, guys," Sofia said as she adjusted the plates on the table. "When I get some more overtime in, I'll buy us something better." "It's okay, sis," Mia replied with a brave smile. "The food tastes good and I'm just happy we're together." They all sat down to eat, the air heavy with unspoken emotion. A few bites in, Lucas suddenly said, "Sis, I miss Mom and Dad. Sophia froze mid-chew. She reached out and tapped Lucas's shoulder, forcing a small, bitter smile. "I do too, Lucas," she whispered. "But we're still here, and as long as I'm here, I won't let anything happen to you." They continued their dinner, every bite filled with silent promises and quiet endurance. The next day, Sophia once again faced the chaos of the hospital. She was still smiling, even after standing all day. Her legs were sore, her body screaming in exhaustion, but she pressed on. While attending to an elderly patient in the charity ward, she caught the attention of another older woman nearby. According to the other staff, the woman was a retired attorney, once connected to politicians and powerful elites. "Dear," the woman said, as she gently dabbed Sophia's forehead with a tissue, "you're amazing. I can't remember the last time someone cared for me like this. I only came to this public hospital because the private ones were too far. But even in a place like this, your care is exceptional." Sophia smiled. "It's just part of my job, ma'am. I only want to give the best service to my patients." "Not all nurses have that kind of heart," the older woman said sincerely. Then she reached into her pocket and handed Sophia a business card. "If you ever think about transferring, I have friends, wealthy ones, who are looking for private nurses. The pay is excellent, much better than here." Sophia accepted the card but slipped it into her pocket without looking at it. "Thank you, ma'am, but I prefer it here. I like helping more people." The woman chuckled softly. "That's noble, but sometimes we also have to put family first." That evening, Sophia came home carrying a plastic bag with some grilled meat and a small container of free soup from a local food stall. "Dinner's here. Let's eat once you two finish washing up," she called out cheerfully. She sat down on the couch to remove her shoes. Mia was reading her school modules while Lucas was playing games on an old cell phone. Just a normal night until Lucas's phone suddenly slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. "Sis," he whispered, his face pale, before blood began to drip from his nose. "Lucas!" Sophia screamed, rushing to his side. Her hands trembled as she guided him out of the room, Mia crying as she followed. They rushed to the hospital. While the doctor spoke to Sophia, she felt like the world around her was spinning. "Miss Rivera," the doctor said gravely, "we need to operate on him immediately. He's experiencing internal bleeding. If we don't act fast, his condition could become critical." "How much will it cost?" she asked, voice shaking. The doctors exchanged glances. The amount they gave her was more than several months of her salary. Even with triple overtime, she felt something in her uniform pocket the business card. Her heart sank. Was this the moment she had to choose? Was she about to abandon her principles for the sake of her family? After several sleepless nights, Sophia made a decision. She called the number on the card. The next morning, a black car arrived to pick her up and take her to an affluent gated community on the outskirts of the city. The mansion was massive, with rows of orchids lining the walkways, white marble staircases, and the wind whispering softly through the grand columns. There, for the first time, she met her new patient, Mr. Edward Grayson. He was seated in a tall wheelchair, barely able to move. Once a powerful man, a politician, an official, a leader now shadowed by scandal, he had become a feeble, frail old man. "This is Nurse Rivera," introduced his assistant. Mr. Grayson said nothing. He simply stared at Sophia, then turned to look out the window. Sophia didn't need an explanation. This was the beginning of a new chapter. Before she moved into the mansion, she first visited the cemetery with Lucas and Mia. They sat silently at their parents' graves. Mia placed a small bouquet of white frangipani on the headstone. "Mom, Dad," Sophia murmured, "please guide us. I had to make this choice for us." As she closed her eyes and prayed, an orange butterfly landed on her shoulder. It slowly opened and closed its wings. Sophia smiled, tears spilling from her eyes. A sign, a blessing. She would do anything for her siblings, for the family that remained. At the mansion on the other side of the city, Mr. Grayson stared silently at the ceiling of his bedroom. He no longer had the strength to argue with his nieces and nephews, who seemed to care only about their inheritance. Nor did he have the desire to keep prolonging his life if it meant more pain and struggle. He called for his long-trusted aide, Mr. James. "You handle everything from here," he said weakly. Mr. James nodded. He understood. It wasn't just about caregiving. It was about secrets. About unexpected consequences in the life of a man burdened by his past. Under the pale light of that morning, Sophia began her first day as a live-in caregiver. She wore a plain, uniform white blouse, black slacks, and a small bag over her shoulder. As she took in the grandeur of the Grayson estate, she felt a pinch in her chest. The marble floors, the chandeliers, the paintings on the wall, each one a reminder of who she now worked for. These were the rich, the people with legacies of plunder and privilege. Sophia took a deep breath. This was for her siblings. She had no other choice. In the first week, she felt like a stranger in her own body. The work was lighter compared to the hospital. No shouting, no frantic cries for help, no patients convulsing in the hallways, and yet she couldn't help but feel a certain heaviness as she fed Mr. Grayson, helped him take his medicine, and fluffed his pillows to make him more comfortable in his wheelchair. One thought echoed in her mind. This mansion was built on the people's money. Sometimes, while wheeling Mr. Grayson through the garden, they passed by a vast stretch of orchids, pristine white, gleaming as though untouched by dirt. But to Sophia, each bloom looked like a stain, evidence of sins long buried. She stayed at the mansion from Monday through Saturday. Because of the demanding nature of Mr. Grayson's care, she only got to visit her siblings once a week. Even so, the pay was undeniably generous. She was finally able to buy Mia a new laptop so she wouldn't have to stay out late at computer shops. She also got Lucas a better bed so he could sleep more comfortably. At the end of her first week, the Graysons' accountant handed her an envelope. It wasn't just double, it was nearly triple what she had earned at the public hospital. Sophia held the envelope in her hands. Her joy was mixed with pain. She knew this money would help her siblings Mia's education, Lucas's treatment. But a part of her wanted to scream, "This isn't right!" Every night, she took care of Mr. Grayson. Before bed, she poured warm water over his hands and feet, gently dressed him in soft pajamas, and checked his IV line and oxygen tank. Mr. Grayson was easy to care for. He rarely complained. Sometimes, he was the first to speak. "Good evening, dear." But Sophia could feel his weakness, not just of body, but of spirit. One afternoon, as she rested in the staff lounge, she chatted with a few of the housemaids. "How are you doing here, Sophia?" asked Carla, one of the laundry staff. "I'm okay," Sophia replied with a forced smile. "No matter what anyone says, Mr. Grayson is kind," another chimed in. "He paid for my kids' schooling, free tuition, uniforms, everything." Carla nodded. "That's true. In politics, you have to expect a little dirt. You can't survive there if you're too clean." Sophia stayed quiet. "But sir, he's kind to those close to him," added another. "He never let us down." Sophia thought deeply. Even if someone is good to the people around them, does that erase the wrong they've done? If the wealth comes from corruption, is it right to accept kindness funded by it? One cold Wednesday night, while Sophia was helping Mr. Grayson into bed, he spoke up. "Dear," he said, his voice weak but firm, "I know you're wondering." Sophia paused, pretending to be busy adjusting his blanket. "I'm sure." Mr. Grayson continued. "These days, young people know so much. They learn from school. They read the papers, the internet." Sophia remained silent. "I'm not a bad man, dear," he said slowly. "It just so happens that in politics, you have to know how to swim in dirty waters, or you'll get swallowed whole." Sophia swallowed hard, avoiding his gaze. "Maybe this is my karma," he said with a faint chuckle. "Trapped in my own body. Can't move, but I'm still thankful I'm not alone." A moment later, Sophia felt his hand brush lightly against hers. "James mentioned something to me," he said. "Your brother needs surgery." Sophia's eyes widened. "How did he know?" "Yes, sir," she answered softly. "He does." Mr. Grayson nodded slowly, each movement labored. "Take him to the hospital. I'll have a friend take care of the operation." Sophia couldn't respond right away. She was stunned. "Oh no, sir," she said quickly. "I'm saving up. I can manage." Mr. Grayson smiled weakly but sincerely. "I just want you to know, dear, that I'm not entirely bad," he said. That night, Sophia sat on the small balcony of the staff quarters, holding a cup of coffee, staring out into the cold garden air. She didn't know what the right thing to do was. Could she accept help from someone whose fortune was tainted? But if she waited too long, would Lucas's body give out? She closed her eyes, letting the tears fall freely. "I just want my family to be safe, Mom, Dad," she whispered. When she opened her eyes, a butterfly landed on her shoulder. "Are you sure?" she whispered, trembling. She exhaled deeply. Maybe everything did have a reason. The next day, Sophia brought Lucas to the hospital Mr. Grayson had recommended. She was stunned at how quickly everything moved. No lines, no billing issues, straight to the specialists. "Are you sure, ma'am?" the nurse asked as she signed the forms. "Everything is covered. We received a memo from Attorney Holt, Mr. Grayson's personal lawyer." Sophia nodded, both hands shaking. As she watched Lucas receive care, tears streamed down her face. Not from shame, but from a kind of gratitude she couldn't explain. When she returned to the mansion, she found Mr. Grayson in the garden, seated in his wheelchair, watching the sunset. She approached him quietly and bowed. "Thank you, sir," she said. "My brother's surgery is now scheduled." Mr. Grayson looked at her, his eyes reflecting a kind of exhaustion that no medicine could cure. "Whatever you think of me, dear," he whispered, "that's up to you, but thank you for letting me help." 3 weeks after Lucas's successful operation, a new light returned to their home. Though there were still follow-up checkups and medications required, Sophia could not be more thankful to God and to Mr. Grayson. Lucas's condition was no longer as dire. The doctors were confident he'd recover fully and would no longer suffer from the severe complications that had once gripped him. One day, following Lucas's medical checkup, Sophia decided it was time for her siblings to visit Mr. Grayson's mansion to express their gratitude. They hadn't been there since receiving his help. Now that their little family was whole again, she wanted them to say thank you in person. When they arrived, the household staff warmly welcomed them. With every step they took inside the vast mansion, they felt a sense of awe. Everything was clean, bright, and organized. Each room, each wall, reflected elegance and history. The housekeeper led them to a large sitting room where Mr. Grayson was already waiting. "Ma'am, welcome," one of the staff greeted with a smile. "Mr. Grayson has prepared something for you." Sophia thanked them politely while Lucas and Mia gazed in wide-eyed wonder at the beauty and grandeur around them. They couldn't believe that, despite all they'd been through, they were now able to witness such a life, even for just a moment. Mr. Grayson sat in his favorite armchair near the fireplace. Though he looked tired and heavy with age, his eyes still held a quiet dignity. When he saw Sophia, his expression softened. "I'm happy you came," he said gently. "I know you're still busy recovering and resting, but you made the time to be here." He smiled deeper. "More than anything, I'm glad to see you all whole and happy." Sophia walked up to him and gave him a hug. "Thank you so much, Mr. Grayson," she said. "If not for you, I don't know what would have happened to us, especially to my siblings." Lucas and Mia, still amazed by the lavish home and luxurious decorations, also spoke up. "Thank you, Mr. Grayson," said Mia, who was now in her first year of college and loved her studies. "We don't know how we'll ever repay you." Mr. Grayson smiled. "All of this came from one goal," he said. "True compassion brings more blessings, and I see that in all of you. A bright future. There's no reason for you to be lacking as long as we support each other." As they continued to talk, Sophia noticed Mr. Grayson opening several large boxes from a side table. Inside were gifts, clothes, accessories, and even a set of household items. Everything was high quality and tailored to their needs. Lucas, who had remained quiet during most of the visit, finally spoke up, surprised. "Why are you giving us all this?" he asked softly. "We don't even have space for these at home." "To make your lives a bit easier," Mr. Grayson replied. "Especially now that you're just beginning to dream." "Sophia brought new life to your family," he added. "I saw her sacrifices. That's why you deserve to be helped." Mia couldn't hold back her excitement. "Whoa, sis. Mr. Grayson is like a grandpa to us now. He's so kind." Sophia chuckled and gently tapped Mia's head. "Don't say that." But she turned to Mr. Grayson. "Still, thank you, Mr. Grayson." Though Sophia was touched, a small doubt still lingered in her heart. Part of her struggled with the idea that someone like Mr. Grayson, a man whose name had once been tied to corruption and deceit, was showing them such sincere care. But with every word, and every gesture, her doubts slowly began to fade. After a few more hours of conversation and laughter, Mr. Grayson revealed one more surprise. "I'm glad to see your happiness," he said. "But more than that, there's something else I want to share." He took a breath. "This is just a small step to help ease your path forward. I'd like to help you move into a more comfortable home." Sophia, caught off guard, quickly replied, "Mr. Grayson, you've already done so much for us. We can't possibly accept more." Mr. Grayson smiled gently. "I've noticed Lucas and Mia's situation. Their dreams are just starting. To help you further, I want you to live closer to Mia's college and Lucas's hospital." Sophia couldn't stop the tears from falling. She knew they still couldn't afford a better place. She didn't know how to respond, but the sincerity in Mr. Grayson's eyes, the depth of his intention, was undeniable. "If that's truly what you want, Mr. Grayson," Sophia said quietly, "then thank you. I don't know how to express our gratitude. Being kind and compassionate brings even greater blessings," Mr. Grayson replied. "That's why I want to help you." In the following weeks, Sophia and her siblings began searching for a new place to live, closer to Mia's college and to Lucas's treatment facility. All of it had become possible thanks to Mr. Grayson. Back at the mansion, life continued. A week passed, then a month. Sophia cared for Mr. Grayson with unmatched dedication. She was happy, knowing that the old man had brought joy and stability to her family's life, something they hadn't known in so long. She still remembered his words. True understanding of life doesn't come from wealth, but from acts of compassion. And even with the lingering questions in her heart, Sophia began to accept the goodness that Mr. Grayson had shown them. Weeks passed, and Sophia gradually became more comfortable in her role as Mr. Grayson's caregiver. At first, she had felt like a stranger going through the motions. But now, Mr. Grayson wasn't just a patient. He had become part of her daily life. Each night, while she bathed him and helped him settle into bed, their conversations became more personal. Unlike those first few days at the mansion, they now often joked with one another. Mr. Grayson once said, "Dear, I've learned in all my years that there are things more valuable than money, a happy and content life." Sophia smiled gently. "That's true, sir, but sometimes having money really does make life easier. If we had been rich, maybe Lucas wouldn't have suffered so long. Maybe Mia could have studied in a better school. Maybe we would have lived a little better. But no matter what," she continued, "as long as we work hard and stay together, that's enough." Mr. Grayson smiled. "That's the most important thing I've learned from young people like you. There are things money can't buy, but if you have someone who truly cares, what more could you ask for?" Sophia, still struggling to fully accept the kindness Mr. Grayson had shown, found herself reflecting. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't even know what kind of gratitude would be enough for everything you've done for us." "All I ask," Mr. Grayson replied, "is that you be happy and that you reach your dreams. If there's anything I can do to help, I will." Sophia's days in the mansion had become brighter. She was no longer just a caregiver. She had become part of the family. She and Mr. Grayson spent time together on Sundays in the park after church, often talking about the simplest things. Their bond had grown so close that Sophia was comfortable teasing him. Sometimes, when Mr. Grayson accidentally slipped from his wheelchair, she'd say, "Oh, come on, you're the one who fell and you're still the one making jokes." And he would chuckle. "Dear, one day when I get full-blown arthritis, I hope you'll still be there to help me through." "Good thing therapy is helping, sir. You're not bedridden anymore," Sophia would reply. "But you still need to rest." Her days had become more colorful. The pain she once carried, her resentment toward the kind of man Mr. Grayson used to represent, had slowly faded. She no longer felt anxious or afraid being around him. And with each passing day, as Mr. Grayson showed more and more kindness and support, her trust in him deepened. One evening, after completing his usual care routine, Mr. Grayson decided to talk longer than usual. He stared thoughtfully at Sophia. "You know, dear, politics never brought me happiness. People chase power and wealth, but all I see now are broken dreams. I carry those in my memory." His tone wasn't arrogant or angry. It was full of regret. Sophia simply listened. She didn't move from his side. She wasn't sure how to feel about what he was saying. But in that moment, she saw a life shaped not by defeat, but by pain, by things for which there might be no redemption. The truth is, Mr. Grayson continued, I loved my children and my family, but in the end, I got tired. I couldn't forgive myself for the things I had done. That's why I'm here now. Alone in this mansion, I gave up politics. But my children, they still crave it. Sophia remained quiet. She was trying to understand. We all make mistakes, she said softly. We all struggle to forgive ourselves sometimes, but I think what matters is how we change and how we help others from that point on. Mr. Grayson looked off into the distance. Maybe you're right, dear. Whatever happens, I hope I can forgive myself someday. That night, Sophia saw Mr. Grayson in a different light. He was no longer just a former politician with a questionable past. He was a man flawed, remorseful, and human. Though she still had feelings about his past, Sophia began to see him in a new way. The weeks that followed brought even more ease between them. One day, while Sophia was tidying up Mr. Grayson's room, he spoke suddenly. Dear, I think I've been helping you. I know you don't want to see me as someone offering you favors, but please believe me, I'm not doing this for praise. Sophia looked up from what she was organizing. I know that, Mr. Grayson, she said. I'm not here for anything other than to thank you and to help in any way I can. Mr. Grayson smiled. You were born into this world to bring light to others, dear. That's what I've learned from young people. Real happiness doesn't come from wealth, but from the simple things. And no matter how heavy Sophia's past had been, no matter how painful the journey, she and her family had learned to embrace the good that Mr. Grayson had brought into their lives. They had never imagined things would turn out this way, and yet all of it had opened new doors for Sophia, for her siblings, and for Mr. Grayson himself. One evening after dinner, Sophia noticed something different about Mr. Grayson. He looked unusually quiet. She approached and asked, Mr. Grayson, is something wrong? He paused for a moment before smiling faintly. Ah, nothing really, dear. I was just telling myself I won't be miserable anymore. My life is full of blessings now because you and your family are here. And with those words, something began to shift. Their closeness, their acceptance of each other. It all felt like the beginning of a new kind of family. Sophia wasn't just a caregiver anymore. She had become like a granddaughter to Mr. Grayson. Despite their differences, a bond had formed. The campaign season had begun. Wherever you turned in television, radio, or social media, the air buzzed with candidates' names and promises. In the Grayson family, it was no different. One of Mr. Grayson's children, Claire, was running for senator. A well-known attorney and long active in politics, she was expected to capitalize on her father's legacy. One afternoon, as Sophia fed Mr. Grayson in the garden, two of his children suddenly arrived. Claire and the eldest, Ethan, who was running for governor, were accompanied by a media consultant. Dad, Claire began, we were thinking it would be great to feature you in the campaign ads. You're the foundation of our name. If the public sees you looking healthy, it'll remind them who you are. It'll make it easier for me to gain their trust. Mr. Grayson turned to look at Sophia. She said nothing, but it was clear she was uncomfortable. She wanted to speak, but held herself back. Mr. Grayson noticed. Dear, do you have something to say? Sophia looked up, hesitant. I'm sorry, Mr. Grayson, but maybe you need to rest. Didn't you say you wanted a quiet life now? His children turned to her. Excuse me, but who are you? Claire asked sharply, her tone laced with irritation. You're not part of this family. Your job is just to take care of him, so don't meddle in our decisions. Sophia fell silent, lowering her gaze. But before she could leave, Mr. Grayson spoke up. Claire, you're my daughter. But in these recent years, sometimes I feel that others know me better than my own blood. He looked at Sophia. She's not just a caregiver. She doesn't just care for my body. She guards my dignity. Claire and Ethan exchanged glances, visibly embarrassed, though Claire tried not to show it. Ethan frowned. Dad, we're not saying she's a bad person, but why does she seem so special to you? There are plenty of caregivers out there. Why her? Mr. Grayson smiled, though it was clear he was physically weak. Because she's the only one who didn't look at me as a politician. She saw me as a human being. The siblings had no response, but the issue didn't end there. That evening, in a private room in the mansion, Claire spoke with her campaign assistant. I want a full background check on that woman, Sofia Rivera. Find out her connection to Dad. Why is she the only one he trusts? Understood, ma'am, the assistant replied. While the Grayson children busied themselves with investigations and political strategy, Sofia remained in the mansion, quietly attending to Mr. Grayson. That night, as she arranged his medication, Mr. Grayson approached her. I'm sorry, dear, he said. I didn't want you to feel embarrassed. I also didn't want my children targeting you. Sofia smiled faintly. It's all right, Mr. Grayson. I understand. It's campaign season. They just want to win. Aren't you mad at them? He asked. They were pretty harsh with their words earlier. Sofia shook her head. No, sir. I was hurt, but I'm not angry. I'm used to not being recognized. I know I'm not important. Mr. Grayson didn't say anything at first. He nodded and gently held her hand. A stillness fell between them. Later that night, Sofia went up to the balcony of the mansion. The air was quiet. Only the breeze and the distant rustle of trees could be heard. She held a small candle and lit it. That day marked the death anniversary of her parents. She knelt and whispered a prayer, staring at the flickering flame. Mom, Dad, I hope you still feel our love. I'm doing everything for them, for Mia, for Lucas, for both of you. But sometimes I get so tired. I don't know if what I'm doing is still right. I don't know who's right or wrong anymore. Tears streamed down her face. She closed her eyes, letting the heaviness in her heart pour out. What she didn't know was that just a few feet away, in the shadows, Mr. Grayson had wheeled himself out of his room. He hadn't meant to overhear, but he had. Using the remote on his electric wheelchair, he had quietly exited, only to hear this deeply personal moment. At first, he considered going back in, but as he listened to Sofia's words, something inside him stirred. The girl he had thought of as just a simple caregiver was, in fact, a daughter, a sister, an orphan fighting to survive. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But that night, in silence, he made a decision. When he returned inside, he summoned Mr. James. James, he said. The old aide came at once. Yes, sir. Mr. Blank. Grayson let out a deep sigh. It's time. Are you sure? I don't know how much time I have left, but I don't want to die without fixing what needs to be fixed. Will they understand? Maybe not, Mr. Grayson said, but I'm not doing this for them. Then for whom? For her? For Sofia and her siblings? They looked at each other. A heavy, knowing silence passed between them. It was the kind of look that carried a secret, one that would change everything. The silence inside the mansion that night was deep and heavy. There was no music, no laughter from the house staff in the kitchen, no shuffling of slippers against the marble floors. Everything felt as if it had come to a stop, especially for Sofia Rivera. Just earlier, she had been at the back of the mansion holding a tray when Mr. James approached her. Sofia, come quickly. Mr. Grayson doesn't look well. Sofia hurried into the old man's room. The moment she saw him, she noticed it. His eyes had sunk deeper, his skin had turned red, and his fingers trembled slightly against the blanket. Mr. Grayson, she whispered, setting the tray down on the bedside table. Instead of answering, he let out a faint groan. She immediately checked his pulse, then pressed the back of her hand to his forehead. His fever is high, Mr. James. We need to call Dr. Bennett. As she read the thermometer, she and Mr. James exchanged a knowing glance. They both understood Mr. Grayson's health crisis had returned. The next day, Sofia sat quietly at his bedside, adjusting his IV drip. Mr. Grayson struggled to breathe. He barely spoke, and when he did, it was only in whispers. Yet each time he managed to look at her, he still smiled. I'm sorry, dear, he whispered through a dry throat, trying to suppress a cough. Looks like I won't last much longer. Don't say that, sir. Sofia replied quickly. I'm here. I'll do everything I can to make you feel better. Despite the heartbreak, exhaustion, and shame that had recently plagued her, especially the humiliation her sister Mia had faced at school, and the harsh judgment they'd received for their connection to Mr. Grayson, Sofia couldn't abandon him in this condition. She saw his suffering, and despite her doubts, she felt compassion. That night, while she applied a warm towel to Mr. Grayson's chest, she noticed the trace of tears sliding from the corner of his eye. "Why are you crying?" she asked softly. His voice was weak and hoarse. "I was just thinking about my grandfather and about myself as a father." "I don't know, dear. It seems like the older you get, the more you realize how little you truly know about life." Sophia said nothing. She let him speak, knowing it was his way of easing his burden. "I'm sorry you got caught in the mess of my family," he added. "I don't even know how to thank you properly." "You don't owe me anything," Sophia said. "This is my duty as a nurse. I'm just happy I can at least bring you some comfort." Mr. Grayson didn't respond. He stared at the ceiling, his eyes slowly closing. The next morning, Dr. Bennett arrived. After a thorough examination, he pulled Sophia aside to the veranda. "His condition is very delicate now," the doctor said gravely. "His body can no longer handle the strong medications. What he needs now is consistent care and comfort." "You're doing well, Sophia, but you'll need strength mentally and emotionally." Sophia nodded. "I can do it, Doc. Just not yet, please, not yet." Meanwhile, on the other side of the mansion, Mr. Grayson's children were busy preparing for the next campaign sortie. Planners, PR staff, and campaign managers filled the large conference room. Not one of them bothered to check in on their father. Mr. James, furious, wanted to confront them, but Sophia stopped him. "Mr. James, let's just try to understand. Maybe they're going through something." "But Sophia, they're his children. Shouldn't they be the first ones here?" Sophia had no answer. In the depths of her heart, she carried that same disappointment. Still, she chose to devote herself to caring for Mr. Grayson. One evening, while changing his bedsheets, Mr. Grayson suddenly spoke. "Sophia, I have one last request." She paused and looked at him. "What is it, sir?" "When my time comes, don't let them decide how I'm sent off. I want you to handle it. You're the one who truly cares." Sophia didn't know what to say. She forced a smile and gently took his hand. "You're not going anywhere yet. Let's focus on getting you stronger." But the days passed, and Mr. Grayson's condition worsened. He spent more time asleep than awake. He barely spoke. Yet whenever he did wake, the first person he asked for was Sophia. Once, she sat alone in a guest room, stroking the necklace her mother had left her. "Mom, Dad, I don't know if what I'm doing is right. I just want to make things better for Mia and Lucas, but I don't even know if I'm still choosing what's right." The next day, while she was cleaning Mr. Grayson's room, she noticed something tucked inside an old book, on the shelf a thick envelope. But she didn't touch it. She carefully closed the book and returned it to its place. She respected the old man's privacy, even if she suspected it held something important. Just as she stepped out of the room, Claire stormed into the mansion. "You're still here?" she asked coldly. "I thought you were leaving." Sophia didn't flinch. "I can't leave while Mr. Grayson's condition is unstable. You're not obligated to stay. We can replace you any time." Suddenly, Mr. James appeared. "But no one can replace Sophia. She's the only one Mr. Grayson calls for when he can't breathe, the only one he truly trusts." Claire glared at Sophia. She didn't say another word and headed straight into her father's room. Later that week, Sophia was helping Mr. Grayson into his wheelchair for his usual time in the garden. He smiled faintly. "Sophia, thank you. Even without any obligation, you've stayed. You haven't left me." "I can't leave you like this," she whispered. The old man closed his eyes. "Maybe this is my karma, but if there's one thing I don't regret, it's having you in my life, dear." Sophia looked at him. After all the emotion she'd felt over the past few weeks, anger, sadness, confusion for the first time, she felt something purer, real sympathy. Not for a politician, but for an old man who was close to losing everything: his body, his voice, his influence. Except for one thing, his dignity as a human being. Mr. Grayson's condition declined rapidly over the following days. A week after his birthday, he suddenly lost his appetite. He stopped responding properly. It was as though his body had finally surrendered to time. Every breath became heavier, and the once firm voice had withered into faint groans, barely audible, even to Sophia. She called the doctor immediately. He advised no further delay. Mr. Grayson needed to be taken to the hospital right away. Every hour was crucial. With the help of Mr. James and a house staff member, they placed him into an ambulance. Sophia sat silently beside him, holding his hand and listening to his faint heartbeat, knowing that one misstep could be his last. At the hospital, he was admitted for observation. The diagnosis was pneumonia. His body was too weak, his immune system too low. Even minor infections had become a major threat. He was moved to the ICU. Sophia sat quietly in a corner of the cold hospital room, watching the old man who could barely move. She tried not to cry. She tried to stay strong. But inside, she felt lost, frightened, overwhelmed, grieving. News of Mr. Grayson's condition quickly reached his children. They arrived at the hospital, followed by reporters and staff, eager for updates on the influential patriarch. "What are you doing here?" demanded Ethan, the eldest son and current gubernatorial candidate. His tone was hard, his anger barely hidden. "You're just the caregiver," Olivia added coldly, another daughter, now running for city council. Sophia said nothing. She kept her head down. Even if she wanted to explain, it felt like something was lodged in her throat. She could feel every stare measuring her, questioning her presence. "Maybe you've been neglecting him on purpose," Henry accused. "Maybe you want him gone sooner so you can get what you want." The household staff exchanged looks. Mr. James, who had remained silent all this time, looked at Sophia. His restraint was visible, but the fury in his eyes was unmistakable. Suddenly, a lawyer arrived at the hospital, carrying a sealed envelope. He held Mr. Edward Grayson's last will and testament. "He's not even dead yet, and you're already bringing that out," Julian said in disbelief. "He personally instructed that this be delivered in case his condition worsened," the lawyer replied calmly. With all the children present, the attorney began to read the document. He detailed each section carefully until he reached the most critical line. "All of Mr. Edward Grayson's estate will go to Sophia Rivera." The room fell into stunned silence. It was as though time itself had frozen. "What?" Ethan yelled. "That's impossible." "She's just a caregiver," Henry exclaimed. "I knew it," Olivia snarled. "You've been playing him all along. You're worse than we thought. You're a liar." Olivia shoved Sophia, who stumbled backward, too shocked to respond. Mr. James stepped in. "Enough. Don't turn this into violence." "What's with you, Mr. James?" Claire snapped. "Why are you so quick to defend her?" The senator, Hopeful's voice, rose with emotion. She had also launched an investigation into Sophia's background. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" Claire shouted. "Tell us, Mr. James. You've been with Dad the longest. You know the truth." "What truth?" everyone demanded. Claire turned toward Sophia, locking eyes with her. "Do you even know who you are?" Sophia didn't answer. She looked away, as if afraid of the answer. "Your grandmother, Elena. She was a maid in this house. Dad loved her, but he was already married. And because of the scandal, they sent her away. They almost had her killed, but she survived." Back in the 1970s, under the dim lights of the Grayson mansion, a young housemaid named Elena quietly scrubbed the living room floor. She was meek, hard-working, and always too afraid to look the masters in the eye. But young Edward Grayson, then a rising political figure, saw her differently. She was unlike the women from his world, quiet, yet deep and kind in a way he hadn't seen before. "Elena," he once called one late evening. "Yes, sir," she said, bowing slightly. "Can we talk for a moment?" And from there everything began. In secret, they fell in love. Behind the garden walls, beneath the chandeliers, their love grew, forbidden by the times. When Edward's legal wife found out, everything changed. Rage filled the house. One day, Elena was suddenly gone, banished to the countryside with no warning, no chance to say goodbye. What Edward didn't know was that Elena had been pregnant. She gave birth to a daughter in the province, a child Edward never knew. That child was Sophia's mother. "This isn't true," Ethan muttered, trembling. "It's true," Claire snapped. Now it makes sense why Dad was so kind to her. Why no matter what we did, it felt like he loved Sophia more. Because she's his granddaughter. Sophia felt weak. Her knees gave out, and she slowly sank to the floor. She couldn't comprehend the flood of emotions, anger, fear, sorrow, everything blurred. Your mom was Dad's child with the maid, which means you and your siblings, you're his grandchildren, Claire declared. All of it is true. Dad wanted to make it up to you because your parents died in that accident. He never got to meet his own daughter. So now he's doing everything for you. But we won't accept it. The room was silent. Everyone stared at Sophia, the woman they had dismissed as a nobody, a simple caregiver. In a single moment, she had become the true heir. Mr. Grayson asked to see Sophia. He was extremely weak now, barely able to move. I want to see her, he murmured. But instead of Sophia, Mr. James returned alone. Where is she? Mr. Grayson asked, his voice almost a whisper. Mr. James stood quietly. She left, sir. Why? Why would she do that? She couldn't handle it. Tears welled in Mr. Grayson's eyes, the once strong gaze now filled with grief. He wanted to apologize, to hold Sophia's hand, to tell her the truth that she was the only living memory of a love he had failed to protect. He had hoped to make up for everything, but it was too late. Outside the hospital, rain poured. Inside a staff vehicle, Sophia sat in silence, hugging her bag as tears streamed down her face. Her heart, once steadfast, now felt broken. She wasn't angry at Mr. Grayson, nor was she angry about the truth of who she really was, but it hurt. It hurt to know that the answers she had longed for came with a price: anger, suspicion, and the staining of her name. She didn't know if she could go back. She didn't know if she could forgive herself for what now felt like a lie, the life she had lived in that mansion. After the news broke that Sophia was the illegitimate granddaughter of Edward Grayson, the entire city buzzed. It wasn't just Mr. Grayson's family that was shaken. The public, once staunch supporters of the Grayson political dynasty, began to question everything. Headlines exploded across tabloids and online news sites. Grandchild of former maid inherits Grayson wealth. Caregiver or heir? End of a dynasty. Graffiti appeared on campaign posters of Mr. Grayson's children. Words like traitor, liar, and corrupt scribbled across their faces. In the middle of the chaos, Sophia remained quiet. She avoided the cameras, the questions, and especially the judgment, but most of all, she avoided her own feelings. It was raining again. She sat in the small living room at home beside Lucas's bed, holding Mia close. They were both quiet, the tension thick in the air. "Sis," Lucas whispered, afraid to break the silence. "It's all true, right? We really are Mr. Grayson's grandchildren." Sophia looked up, unsure how to begin. She hadn't meant to hurt anyone. She hadn't asked for any of this. "Yes, Lucas," she replied softly. "It's true." For the first time, tears streamed down her face in front of them. "What do we do now, sis?" Mia asked, her voice barely audible. "Everyone's mad at us. Even Mr. Grayson's kids. Even people. Can't we just go back to how things were before?" Sophia broke down, unable to hold back the sobs. Amid the sound of rain on the roof, her crying became the soundtrack of that night. She held her siblings tightly, as though trying to shield them from a world she could no longer control. "I'm so sorry," she said between sobs. "If I had known things would end up like this." But even as confusion consumed her, she needed time. For several days, she shut herself away from the world, refusing to return to the mansion, ignoring Mr. James's calls. She needed to find herself again. She needed to weigh everything. One afternoon, while sitting under the old mango tree in their backyard, a butterfly landed on her shoulder. It was like a scene from the past, like that day at her parents' grave when she had first decided to accept the job caring for Mr. Grayson. It felt like a message, like a hug from beyond. She looked up at the sky, her tears falling silently. "Mom, Dad," she whispered, "what should I do?" As she stared at the butterfly, everything became clearer. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about wealth. It was about forgiveness, about recognizing family, no matter what it looked like. Her phone rang. She didn't answer. Then it buzzed again. A text. It was from Mr. James. "Sophia, if you're okay, please come. Mr. Grayson wants to see you before it's too late." Sophia clutched her phone tightly. She remembered that last night in the mansion. How Mr. Grayson had begged her not to leave, how he had remained silent, watching her go, powerless. Now, as the Grayson family teetered on collapse, and as their father lay dying, they were asking for one more chance. Sophia stood outside the hospital room. Her hands trembled as she reached for the doorknob. Through the glass panel, she could see Mr. Grayson lying unconscious, pale, barely clinging to life. Machines beeped in rhythm, his oxygen tube gently rising and falling with each breath. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. Then, slowly, she pushed the door open. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy. The lights were dim, and the sound of the oxygen machine filled the silence. Sophia walked quietly to his bedside. She didn't speak right away. She simply took his hand and held it as tears began to fall from her eyes. "Mr. Grayson," she whispered. "Grandpa." He stirred. His eyes blinked open slowly, as if the weight of his lids took all his strength. When he saw her, a weak smile appeared on his face. "You came," he said faintly. Sophia nodded, struggling to hold back her sobs. "I didn't want to come," she admitted, "but I couldn't let you go without saying goodbye." "I'm glad," he whispered. "I waited. I really hoped. I didn't want to die without seeing you again." She held his hand tighter. I'm sorry," he said, his voice shaking. "For everything. For not being there for your mother. For not knowing. For failing to protect her. For only finding you so late." Sophia shook her head. "You didn't fail. You tried. You still tried to make things right." "I don't have much time," he said. "Don't say that." He gave her a knowing look. "There's one last thing I want you to promise me," he said. She waited. "Take care of your siblings. Be strong. Live well. Don't let the world take away your light." Sophia nodded, tears now pouring freely. "I will. And forgive me," he added, "for being a coward." "You're not a coward," she said. "You're the one who gave me and my siblings a chance to live again." They sat like that in silence, Sophia resting her head beside his, their hands still clasped. And then, without warning, his grip loosened. The beeping slowed. Sophia looked up. "Mr. Grayson," she said, panicked. The nurse rushed in. Moments later, the flatline tone rang out. Sophia stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. He was gone. The man who had once ruled with power and fear, who had rebuilt himself through compassion and quiet redemption, was gone. Behind her, the door opened. Mr. James stood there, head bowed. "It's time," he said quietly. Sophia nodded slowly, wiping her tears. The funeral was held days later. No political banners were displayed. No speeches from senators or public officials, just a simple ceremony at a quiet cemetery on a grassy hill where the breeze blew gently and birds sang in the trees. Sophia stood front and center, holding Lucas and Mia's hands. Only a handful of guests came, but they didn't come because of power or legacy. They came because of the man Mr. Grayson had become in his final days. At the end of the service, Sophia approached the casket and placed a single white orchid atop it. She whispered something no one else could hear. "Thank you for being my family, even just for a while." And as she turned away, she felt lighter, not because the pain was gone, but because forgiveness had found its way in. Several months later, the Grayson mansion stood quietly at the edge of the city, its windows closed, its halls silent. No parties, no campaigns, no echoes of hurried footsteps on the marble floors. Sophia stood before its gates once more, not as a visitor nor a caregiver, but as its legal occupant. The house, now left to her, had become a symbol of everything she had gained and lost. Lucas and Mia followed close behind, wide-eyed but quiet. "Is this really ours now, sis?" Lucas asked. Sophia gave a small nod. "It is." They walked inside together. The staff who remained bowed respectfully. These were the ones who had seen it all, who had cared, who had understood. Rooms once cold and lifeless slowly found warmth again. Sophia didn't change much. She left the portraits on the walls, the antique furniture untouched, but she opened the windows, let the sun in, filled the kitchen with laughter and simple meals, and turned the garden into a place where Lucas could play and Mia could study under the trees. She didn't seek power. She didn't demand anyone call her an owner. She simply lived with dignity, with grace. One afternoon, while sorting through old documents in Mr. Grayson's study, Sophia found a letter. The envelope bore her name in the old man's handwriting. She opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Sophia, if you are reading this, then I am no longer there beside you, but I hope my presence lingers in the warmth of this house, in the quiet peace of its halls. I spent my life chasing things that didn't matter, only to realize too late what truly does. Kindness, forgiveness, family. You gave me that. In my final days, you gave me the chance to be better. Thank you for taking care of me, for allowing me to be part of your life, even just for a short while. You are strong, Sophia. Keep that strength. Share it with your siblings, and never forget that you are loved by me, by your parents, by the universe itself. Live well. With all my heart, Edward Grayson." Sophia held the letter to her chest. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks. Later, as the sun set over the garden, she stood beneath the old oak tree where she used to wheel Mr. Grayson out for air. A gentle wind rustled the branches. A single orange butterfly floated past her and landed on her shoulder. She smiled. Somewhere, somehow, she knew he was watching. From that day forward, Sophia lived simply. She used part of the estate to build a small community clinic. Another part funded scholarships for underprivileged youth. The rest she left untouched, choosing instead to work, to serve, to remain grounded. Reporters still tried to reach her. The story had gone viral, but Sophia refused all interviews. She didn't want fame, only peace and love and her family. Years passed. Mia graduated from college with honors. Lucas became a pediatrician. And Sophia? Sophia continued to write in her journal every night, continued to light a candle for her parents, continued to tend the orchids in the garden. Because in that house, built by power and stained by past sins, a new life had taken root, a life led not by politics, but by love.